We can also finally say now that we are award-winning Fresh Intranet without making it up.
That's huge, David, isn't it? So we got this award from Clearbox Consulting. They are trusted independent workplace consultancy business, and they run each year the Intranet report. So what is nice that among the 20 products reviewed in detail, only 6 earned the Internet Choice badge. So Fresh is now a leading internet solution, which is really nice. Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Fresh Perspectives. Great to be here again, talking to everyone. I'm Jarbas host, Senior Product Manager for Fresh Intranet, and with me I have my colleague and mate.
Hi, Dave Bowman, Product Director, Fresh Intranet. Hey, I can officially say this week that we are award-winning Fresh Intranet. I'm not making it up.
No, you are not. You are not. It's official. It's an honor. Really great. Can we say we're thrilled, or we should not?
No, you can't say that.
Yeah. Okay. We are honored then. So as you said, David, it's a huge award, I think, for everyone kind of in the intranet space. We got that from Clearbox. Clearbox, an independent consultancy business who evaluates multiple internet vendors. So, for example, we won the award. There were 20 other very great vendors. We have like in this space, Unily, Staffbase, Omnia, people with very companies with big teams, and we managed like to win this space. From like 20 people who were evaluated, 6 won the award, and we were one of them. Which is really nice. And what Clearbox said about that, I think I would like to just read that aloud. So Fresh does a great job of sticking closely to SharePoint and Microsoft features, yet provides excellent capabilities that enhance the experience. It is particularly strong in news and content management and provides good support for communities as well. We also felt the use of AI for search and information management was among the stronger examples we saw. And we look forward to seeing what comes next. So it's really nice to get this feedback from independent analysts.
Yeah. And when you start doing these things, you don't necessarily set out to win any awards, right? That's not the reason that you do this stuff, but it's really nice to get the validation from someone that we admire as much as Clearbox. And in particular, I think what was nice to kind of hear about in that summary there is all of those meetings that we have, talking about planning features and deciding to not build things. They're not always easy discussions. There's a fair amount of arguments is probably the wrong word. Maybe it's the right word. Not sure. But yeah, we spend a lot of time working out what we're going to do and why we're going to do it.
This feedback on the AI part, just like to mention that, right? So we have been working on AI for 2 years now. Developing our strategy, the features we want to include in this solution. And yeah, so it's nice to get like an emphasis on that when we kind of get feedback from people.
Speaking of people that we love, from Clearbox to Microsoft.
Oh yes, David. Well, you had like the privilege, the honor of going to Las Vegas, not for the casinos, but like, as you said, for one of the greatest events around Microsoft 365 conference. So how was the event? What is this event about?
Yeah, it was good. I had a good time. I, being an old man and a bit of a grumpy old man, I don't really like fun. So Vegas was basically wasted on me, rather than me being wasted on Vegas. So I didn't spend a lot of time in the casinos or drinking, for the main reason that it's extremely expensive and I got better things to spend my money on. But yeah, this was the Microsoft 365 Community Conference. This is vendors, services organization, product companies, consultants, MVPs, customers getting together in one place for a few days to kind of talk all things Microsoft. Big focus on the modern work area, employee experience in Microsoft 365. To hear the latest news, hear case studies, meet vendors in the expo hall, talk to Microsoft, talk to experts, MVPs like yourself. A lot of networking, a lot of talking, a lot of conversations. And I think what I really like about this event is that it isn't just dominated by Microsoft hitting their marketing points, right? There is there's a bit of that. People want and expect that, but Microsoft really hand the stage over to people that are in the community, building, working on, creating stuff within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So, you get a really good mix of kind of high level marketing message, but some really good kind of community orientated content in that event as well.
Which is like, so this is not a Microsoft event, for clarity. It's a community event with a big focus on Microsoft.
Yeah, there is a third party that runs the conference. They do a great job of kind of curating the content and managing everybody at the event. But clearly Microsoft have a guiding hand and are putting a pretty big investment into this thing themselves. There are a lot of people from Microsoft that go along to these events.
Yes. So you have speakers then from Microsoft and also like from the community. I think one of our co-workers, colleagues were there as well.
Yes. Shout out to John Jarbas.
Yes. Great session.
Yes. Yeah, he did a good session on ethical hacking of Microsoft 365, a kind of live demo of hacking a tenant. And, being someone that has a tenant, I had to sort of draw breath and realize that I'm probably not doing any of the things that he recommended as practices in that session. So I suspect there were a lot of people in the room that had that kind of, right, I better do something about this now.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I know the feeling. Well, talking about kind of topics. So, what was there like one main topic? I have a bit of feeling there. And so, what were the things discussed at the conference?
So, no surprise that the word Copilot was said with an increasing frequency as the days tick by. Clearly, this is the kind of hero application service that Microsoft want everybody to know about, think about, and I think probably with some justifiable cause, right? People wanted to hear about it as well. Susan Hanley, who's a personal hero of mine, in her session was joking that every time someone says the word Copilot at that event, an angel gets their wings, and we are creating millions of angels this week. So I think that was a pretty accurate take. But yeah, Copilot was really kind of cutting through everything that was on at that event. But kind of modern work focus. So Teams, SharePoint, Power Platform, those kinds of services had a big focus at the event.
But I assume so modern work then also connected to AI. And so probably how agents are playing a role, or that will happen more and more in the future then.
Yeah, it's kind of shaping the experience for end users, right? Which applications they're using, how are they accessing it, how to line your content up, what are the new themes, key concepts that vendors, consultants, specialists should be thinking about, talking about to their end customers.
Right. And so if we think a bit of the keynotes that you probably joined there, were like some highlights?
Yeah. So Jeff Teeper, who had a very energetic start to his keynote on the first day, plus guests showcasing across Copilot, Teams, SharePoint, and the Power Platform. We're going to talk about this in a little bit. Microsoft had this kind of concept of the frontier firm. We're going to come back to this. There was a kind of introducing that as a theme into the keynote. Essentially, that is organizations that are being kind of Copilot driven, I guess, to sort of simplify a kind of 2-hour keynote into a single sentence. With some new functionality coming to Copilot, that the keynote needs to have these sort of big announcements to get people amped up for the rest of the week. And the kind of flagship announcement there is this researcher agent, which looks really powerful, right? The demo that they showed is a research topic, creating a marketing report of kind of kicking this thing off, leaving it, ticking through some documentation at work, identifying practices on the web to put together this report, which can then be shared in multiple ways.
which is nice. Like I have played around with deep research in ChatGPT researcher agent, so that's not available yet. At least I haven't been able to use it yet. But like this deep research in ChatGPT Plus and Pro and Team versions, that it's available now. So that like using reasoning and doing kind of really a deep research on the sources that it finds along the way or that you've been provided up front, it will kind of go read like that content, kind of literally kind of read, open the websites, read the content there or the pages, and then come back with a detailed report summary of the findings, right? You can influence also how the output is provided. And the research agent goes in the same direction. I think we have a big benefit here that is integrated with your organizational data. Like web plus organizational data, and that can really kind of very good insights that you can then leverage.
Yeah, as you say, if you're kind of doing this in ChatGPT today with deep research, you're kind of in the position where you've got to upload a load of content from work that you're working on. Not a recommended thing to do.
Not recommended thing to do. Yeah.
And if our security people are listening, I'm definitely not doing this.
No.
So you have the ability in this one to kind of integrate that kind of work and web experience. So there's a huge benefit for organizations that are kind of trying to automate and produce this level of research using a combination of both.
Yeah, like those, just out of curiosity for people if they haven't used that yet. So a research can take minutes now, so it's not something that goes quickly. Yeah, like one of the examples I had, I think, was like 25 minutes reading, I think, content from 14 different sources to then generate kind of the outcome. It's quite impressive.
Yes, yeah. In the demo, she kind of kick this process off, did some demos on some other things, and came back to see the outcome from this. So the expectation is this is kind of an agent that's been set off on an activity. It's going to go and do it, right? It's not going to give you the kind of live rundown. It's giving you some feedback as to where it's got up to, so you don't think that it's completely stalled or anything. But I think the idea is that you're going to go and do something else while this is finishing its task.
I'm like quite interested in this topic, and if we just take the insights, the knowledge we have from deep research in ChatGPT. So the question I have is, because this is kind of an expensive task, right? So to have an agent running for so long, will there be kind of limitations when it comes to the research agent? Like, can you just run 10 per day as a user, or I don't know, like 100 as an organization? Will that maybe be an extra cost for this agent? So yeah, things that we will learn. Did they say something about that?
And Microsoft's not up for talking about any of the additional costs in the keynote. That's for sure. So yeah, that looks exciting. There was an additional feature for notebooks as well, which is a kind of, if people are using ChatGPT projects, it's a kind of comparative to that sort of a function. And again, the demo there is, in the Copilot app, create a notebook, give it a title, give it a description, and then it's producing some internal work-based content that you might want to add into the notebook that you can use for reference within your notebook then.
Right. So from what I understood, so you can kind of use Copilot. Let me kind of rephrase this. You have kind of in the notebook, you can create pages that will contain kind of your notes. You can also upload reference content there or additional information and have that stored in a notebook. And then you can use Copilot on top of that to ask then questions based on information you have on the notebook, or maybe also like to draft content based on that information.
It's essentially everything that I've wanted OneNote to be. And there was a demo of the image creation capabilities coming to Copilot as well. So again, I've been playing around with ChatGPT for creating images for PowerPoint presentations or for other content that I'm creating, and so a kind of comparable experience within Copilot, with the added benefit that this thing can connect to the brand center as well. So you've got things like your color palette, your fonts, other reference material within the brand center can be used in the images that you're creating.
So then you can kind of generate then images that are aligned with your corporate branding.
Yes, rather than a bit of trial and error in the ChatGPT equivalent to try and create something that's in your brand, right? So it felt like a much more fluid and connected to work experience doing it in Copilot.
Yes, well, always when you are operating within Copilot, you have the benefits of enterprise data protection. You are connected to your organizational data. So those are kind of big benefits of using Copilot.
Yeah, and then the kind of the remainder of the announcements from the keynote, we're going to come back to talk a little bit about SharePoint in a second. Bit of a focus on Teams for the new chats, channels, Teams conversations experience that I'm still adjusting to, and apparently lots of other people are still adjusting to. The Teams live translations thing that looked pretty cool. Again, a kind of demo of a Spanish speaker on a Teams call, speaking in their native language, and the Teams live translation, giving you an audio translation in English in that demo, in that person's voice, tone of voice, accent.
Right. In real time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's impressive. I'm
Very
curious,
cool.
like when that comes.
Yes. So again, more ways for the multilingual fresh team to embarrass me in the fact that I'm the only person that doesn't really speak any other languages.
Oh, but then you speak English very well. No, it's
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've been practicing it for many years.
Well, on the keynote, did they talk about kind of agent to agent? So what did they mention this topic there?
Yeah. So Copilot agents as a kind of persistent themes. There was more in the I guess in the second keynote, which was at the beginning of the last day, where there was kind of talk about this frontier firm and what does this mean for us all?
Right. That's interesting. I mean, I have seen like some new announcements around this topic, which is a bit like more technical. But I can maybe just emphasize that or mention that here quickly is like the aspect of having an agent-to-agent protocol, something that's available in Microsoft, and that will allow you like to create agents that can then talk to each other. So that could be a scenario of having a business travel agent that kind of orchestrates the request with multiple agents, right? So one agent being kind of the policy agent that is connected to the data SharePoint, then the approval agent, probably using maybe Power Automate, and then you have kind of the airline agent and let's say a hotel agent. So you have kind of the one main agent coordinating the work and communicating with other agents to get kind of the task done.
Yeah. So this is the kind of connecting fabric between all of these agents.
It is like, yes, it's, I think will really mean like a huge productivity gain for users when we have kind of that in place. Another thing that's then more technical is then the ability like to have the agent communicating with third-party systems, like systems outside of your organization, which could be maybe kind of integrating with Confluence, ServiceNow, and like those different tools that we have. The technical term there is like MCP, Model Context Protocol, that will then make that communication possible in real time and allowing you also like to perform tasks on the third-party system. So not just read information, but also perform a task there directly. For example, sending an email from the agent, kind of operating in Microsoft 365, but then maybe sending an email, let's say using Google Mail, for example.
Yeah, transparently to the human being.
So I think great possibilities that will be coming soon that will unlock new ways how we experience work, I think.
Yes. All right. Let's talk a little bit about SharePoint then, because this had quite a big focus at the Microsoft 365 Community Conference with a big headline number. I think it was slide number 2 or 3 in Jeff Teeper's keynote session, talking about how Microsoft has gone over the 1 billion user mark. He missed the old Austin Powers movie reference in the keynote. I think everybody else was doing it for him on that slide. But it's such an impressive number.
That was his chance to use that.
Yeah.
But that's daily, or is that monthly?
Well, it was flagged as 1 billion active users, 1 billion users of SharePoint.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, which, even if it's monthly, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a big number, and I think like SharePoint or
Or
not,
not.
um, it's hard to knock that statistic. This is a product service that is everywhere. It's inescapable now. Whether you want to accept it or not, it is in most organizations.
We had a webinar the other day where we talked about kind of SharePoint in the middle, and then a lot of other solutions using SharePoint as kind of the foundation. If we think of Teams and so on, right? So everything connected.
Yeah, that kind of backbone of Microsoft 365. Two main themes for SharePoint at the at the conference then. So and I guess two slightly categories for SharePoint. On one side, we had a lot of sessions of content focusing on beautiful SharePoint, focusing on things like flexible layouts. We've talked a bit about the additional power that they bring. The editorial cards web part, again, a great addition for adding, high impact features. Being able to use fonts, the brand center. This is a kind of really for the first time ever of being able to create these attractive SharePoint pages. Feels a bit like a kind of web publishing engine instead of what people might think about as SharePoint.
Which is good that you say that, because that's kind of aligning with one of our predictions at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
All right, SharePoint goes web publishing, and
Yes.
actually the amount of features in this space, it keeps coming. The editor cards, for example, is one of the new additions here.
Yes. I think one, and there were a few questions on this topic in one of the sessions we were talking about SharePoint, that, these are features that allow you to create these beautiful SharePoint pages, right? But, what you can identify is that because of the way that this works, right? And this is true of any kind of web publishing system like this, that it needs you to have a pretty good eye on design.
Yes, because
right?
it gives you so many options, huh?
Yes. If you've got a marketing department that understand design, are keen on brand and can create these kind of assets for you, these are great features, because you can use the resources that you've got in house to create something amazing. But the fact that you can create these beautiful pages means that you can also turn it into a real dog's dinner if you don't know what you're doing.
Well, I'll give you an example of someone who can't use that. It's me. I was trying to create some nice pages. We have a feature catalog for our product, and I want to include that we are supporting our flexible layouts, which nice, right? So I thought, hey, I'll go there, trying to create something nice. So that didn't happen. So I ended up taking an image from Microsoft, what they have there. Because you can resize, you can overlap. So there are many options in the way how you can present the content. So if you don't have kind of this design eye, then you might not achieve nice outcomes.
And a few questions, concerns for people about governance on this thing. How do you maintain fidelity of this experience if you have lots of people creating content? People asking obvious questions about, where can I turn this off? How can I have this active for a few people? Clearly these things are not, that level of options is not available in SharePoint yet.
No, it's not. This aspect of governance is a current topic. Not just for agents, that brings also a lot of discussions, but all of the new UI possibilities you have now. I think we talked about that in the previous episode, at least enabling approval and working with page templates, and that's something you can do right now.
Yeah. It was also nice to see Viva Amplify now has probably its rightful place within SharePoint as a kind of SharePoint feature. So in one of the screenshots, one of the demos showed, we're in a SharePoint site on a SharePoint page, and there is an Amplify button in the toolbar. And when you click on the Amplify button, you're presented with some options of being able to send that page and its content into Teams, into Viva Engage, by Outlook, sending a summary and a link back to the intranet as an option, and or being able to publish that into other SharePoint sites as well. And I think, that idea of being able to amplify a page it gives Amplify a much greater purpose within SharePoint.
It has the meaning that the word has, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
really working that way. And before we talked about kind of this being what boost, like there is this boost feature for news pages then. So kind of Amplify now maybe not replacing, but kind of going maybe in that direction of boosting the content across now really multiple channels, because boosting has like a limited area where it applies, and Amplify going here like across multiple channels. And I have like a few questions that kind of I know a bit of Amplify, and you have campaigns in Amplify. So I wonder whether that page that you have amplified in SharePoint kind of becomes maybe part of a campaign somehow, or is that then copied into Amplify? So at least when this feature is available, I would like to give that a try.
Yeah, either I didn't sit in the correct session, but it wasn't covered in the sessions that I sat in. It was, more about here's Amplify as a feature of SharePoint rather than being, something that is associated particularly with a campaign.
And what hasn't changed probably is that you still need the extra license to be able to use Amplify. Yeah.
Yes, certainly. The other area of SharePoint that was being covered here was the kind of Copilot SharePoint, right? So primary things that we were talking about there were being able to create pages. We've talked about this on a previous episode as well. So using prompts or a kind of prompt wizard to build a page from content, being able to update and manage sections of a page using Copilot, these design ideas, and this new thing called the frequently asked questions, or FAQ web part, which was a new web part that you could feed it with some content about a new product or a new service, and it will make suggestions of what your frequently asked questions section should look like, synthesize answers to those questions. It gives you as the human some options to be able to kind of do a pre-publish moderation on what it's created, being able to remove or add or update some of those sections. But again, I heard a lot of talk about this frequently asked questions web part as being something that people view as being really useful.
No, okay. Yeah, like about this web part, I was wondering. So you mentioned that like the person still like has the control of the content. Yeah, that's nice.
In the hands of the editor.
So it's not just like kind of Copilot generating the FAQs and this kind of being kind of self-managed via AI, but the person's like in control.
Yeah, it looks very cool.
For the creating pages, I came up with a word. You have kind of the templates in Copilot, so I call that kind of Copilot-enabled templates, because they are a bit specific, right? So when you open the content creation from Copilot and you choose the template, it comes with a predefined prompt. So you cannot go beyond that. So you need like to fill in the blankets with the information you want, like to describe the sections. So you cannot really go much beyond that. Otherwise, you can like create that from a free prompt where you can really describe everything you want. I tried that, and I was trying like to so create that's the topic. Now also add like quick links web part, create an image of a cat, so it's a bit fun.
There you go. Yeah, the SharePoint team have got a new name that they can use, and a new acronym, right? Have you updated your CETs?
Yes. So just like for people like who maybe haven't used this feature yet, currently Copilot just creates the text. So it adds text web parts to the page, and then we'll craft the message based on your prompt, on your reference documents you upload there. But it doesn't add the web parts or images, so that's not in scope of this feature yet. But it's a nice way to get started.
Yeah, I think what was also clear is that SharePoint still has a valuable role to play in Microsoft 365, right? We talked about it. It's the content engine. It's where the content lives from a lot of the applications that sit in front of it. Teams, etc. So it isn't going anywhere. But you certainly get a sense that there is a renewed focus on things like governance and management of content. Things like Purview as a tool application had a lot of coverage at the event, and you can hear the words being mentioned as you're kind of moving around the conference a bit. So that kind of resurgence of content and information on governance is certainly back.
Yeah. Well, we had a session today. We were at a presentation where we were talking about Copilot and Intranets, enemies of friends. So we also talked like about the role of Intranets and where that's kind of disappearing or not. And people saying like, like we definitely need Intranet. We need the homepage. We need the personalization aspect, governance, right? So especially when we're talking about SharePoint. SharePoint is a place where we have a lot of documents, the policies, the guides. So that is still like important to have. Then the Intranet helping control and manage all of this content. The aspect also like having a central place where communicators can go and see the content available for publishing. Maybe also like being able to send newsletters. So yeah, there are a lot of benefits that people see on the Intranet, and that kind of not going away with all of the additions that we see coming now.
Yes. Yeah. I think that, over time, its front end, its user interface role may change, but certainly as a kind of content store, SharePoint's here to stay. Hey, the other thing that had quite a lot of focus and coverage at the event was Viva Engage. And, I wasn't sure whether this is just something that I'm noticing. Maybe there's always this level of content about Viva Engage, or if the shutdown of Workplace has, created a lot more interest in Viva Engage as a product and platform.
Yeah, I think so, right? There is probably an interest of Microsoft to improve Engage. I believe that a lot of the clients from Workplace by Meta have now are transiting to Viva Engage, and probably there is an interest of kind of mapping some of the functionalities that Workplace had and bringing that now into Engage. I believe so.
Yeah, there was a few sessions on, were really interesting from just kind of being a Microsoft partner, where Microsoft treated themselves as kind of customer zero, right? It's easy to forget that this is an organization of nearly 250,000 people globally, with a huge number of those are going to be managers of people as well. And like any organization, it's got to do internal communications, right? And they were talking about, the challenge of building communities and communicating at that scale. So it was really interesting to kind of hear Microsoft using themselves as a case study for how they're working with their own tools, and just the kind of the same challenges that all other large organizations have. They aren't necessarily related to the technology. This is all about people, right? And moving people in the same direction. So that was a kind of just a really interesting new thing to hear from Microsoft. I think that, the other thing that I picked up as I was kind of moving around the event is on Viva Engage. There's a kind of two groups at that event, right? It's a Microsoft event, so there isn't anyone there kind of, very anti-Microsoft or anti-SharePoint or Viva Engage. But the two groups tended to be kind of those that are using Viva Engage. They like it. They're looking for what they do next. They've got kind of thriving communities that they're working with. And then the other group of people that would like to be using it more than they are, or would like to start using it. I just thought there was a kind of really interesting series of conversations there with that second group, right?
It's a good point, man. I think so. If you would like to start using Engage, if you have kind of existing communities in your organization, that it will be probably easy like to reflect that communities in the kind of this digital format. Now, if you try like to create net new communities and bring people there, that might maybe not work. Well,
to kind of build those communities and improve the way that the tech works. If building up from the ground up, right? Something like communities and a technology like Viva Engage, there's a double pretty big challenge there for organizations. And I guess the feedback that I heard from people is, look, we love the idea of having an enterprise social product and platform like Viva Engage, but we don't have an organization that necessarily, and this is not saying it is a bad thing, right? But the people don't necessarily want to share their thoughts or their content or their information in that sort of a forum, right? They like the idea of it and they can see the benefit of it, but it's like, how do you get started on this, right? That's not a technology question. That is a question about organizational structure.
Yeah. Because we are talking a lot about communities here, and I am kind of wondering whether Engage will change. So it has like play a big role in communication. Also, probably like with workplace, the shutdown of workplace, probably some kind of this feature mapping we mentioned before. So then we are going to see like more communication, internal communication happening in Engage. Maybe like to bring.
I wonder, and I've read kind of opinion pieces on LinkedIn and others about is enterprise social a internal comms tool, right? Is it the right platform to be using for top-down communications? Is that going to squash its use and the benefit that having a kind of productive enterprise social tool, which is primarily about people talking to each other, the moment that you change the purpose of that as being a top-down comms tool, is it squashing its intended usage?
So do people go back to Teams then and start
yeah, absolutely. So I thought there was a kind of just interesting to see a resurgence in enterprise social, and in particular Viva Engage, probably driven by workplace.
Right. Well, that's interesting.
And then you were talking a bit about this at the beginning there on agents. On the final day, we had the kind of second keynote talking about Microsoft's concept of a frontier firm, which is something from their latest Work Trend Index report, which, if you do a Bing search for Work Trend Index, likely to be the first link that you see there, which is Microsoft's latest findings and research on this topic, right? And what they're really talking about with a frontier firm is kind of AI first, right? Using AI optimally to drive efficiencies, to automate business process workflows, get stuff done. And there was a couple of examples they had in the second keynote of a guy that had started his company when he was 14 years old. He's now 22. He's got some, a business that's worth billions of dollars. It's hard to hear as an old man on a Thursday morning. And the second case study was then, look, and here is a mature organization, right? Been around for many years. A lot of people, a lot of existing processes, a way of working, a way of doing things. Don't mean to sound like I'm trivializing the challenges of being a startup, but it's much easier to begin with AI than it is to transition an existing large enterprise to AI. And, I think that Microsoft were doing a good job of putting together a kind of high-level roadmap, a pathway to get from one place to the other.
Like as an established organization, right? So you have your processes in place. You have like people working with that processes. So you need to change technology. You need also like to change the way how people use the technology.
Yes.
So there are many factors that come into play when you if you want like to start with AI in a place where things are established already.
Yeah. And I really like the kind of 3-stage process for, I'm probably oversimplifying a pretty complicated message, but they have this kind of 3-stage thing where they've got people, individuals like you and I, making use of AI tools like Copilot, like ChatGPT, right? And I think getting stuff done, asking questions, creating content, summarizing, helping you to achieve specific tasks, right? I mean, I think that there are a number of people that are using the tools in that way at the moment. The second stage then is kind of human and agent teams, right? And this is a bit more of a formalized way of using the AI tools to get stuff done, right? And I guess I was thinking about this as, I have chat sessions in ChatGPT that are loaded up with context about marketing or recruitment, right? And I'm switching between those conversations. And I guess I was sort of thinking, well, that does make sense, right? I am effectively managing a series of agents there to produce information for me. So I can see this there is a progression from kind of casual use of generative AI chat to thinking about things in terms of me managing a team of agents.
Yeah, that's nice. So the first scenario is kind of I'm like interacting with Copilot or ChatGPT and like on a casual basis. Yeah. or maybe like we could take a picture and upload that like as for analysis. And then the second case is like you are really creating then agents. You have observed like something has been repetitive task, or you are engaging with the AI always kind of in a specific way. So you create an agents in Copilot or GPTs in ChatGPT, and you can always go back to that agent and kind of it's there for that specific task, right? For marketing, for maybe grammar checker, which depending on how you design the agent, basically.
Yeah. And then, the kind of third stage is you have a agent operated, but human led, right? And this is really where you've got agents, as you say, are automating tasks, right? They're off in the background, they're doing stuff, they're interacting with each other, they're updating systems, they're sending emails, they are reporting status back to you, they're doing research, creating reports for you. You as the human being, you're directing them, but rather than them, just working in one vertical, doing one specific task, they're then starting to do more interaction with each other. Business processes, workflows being automated by these agents.
Yeah.
So this kind of, a nice progression from organization exists in state number 1 to state number 2 to state number 3. And I think that was a really nice articulation of, I don't think it's difficult for organizations to be able to drop themselves on that chart and say, we're here today. Here's the work that we need to do to progress to stage 2 or to stage 3.
It's nice, like, be able to visualize that and to understand where you are in this journey. That's really cool. And I think like this kind of agent to agent capability that we discussed previously will also like play a role in this kind of that's not final stage, but kind of the third stage, where then the aspect of automation will become more realistic than with agents. And then the person kind of managing that, kind of giving the task and getting kind of the report that, hey, I'm done with that, and here's the outcome.
Yes. Yeah. So, look, that's the Microsoft 365 Community Conference in a slightly bigger than a nutshell.
Yeah, well, was very insightful from what we're talking. That's great. So then we close mentioning again that we are now in award-winning Intranet.
Award-winning Intranet, yes.
That's great. Well, let's leave it in here. Thank you, David, for the discussion. It was great as always.
Cheers. Speak soon.
Cheers.